from WBBZ-TV Sports. It's time to beat the champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Are you feeling lucky? Well, we are, because welcome to Beat the Champ at Lucky Lanes in Fredonia with the Hall of Famer and the scoreboard star. I am your pin-by-pin, play-by-play man, and welcome to another wonderful month of Beat the Champ. And even better, Sue, because we have a rather rare occurrence to get everybody started here in our first match in Fredonia. It's a rematch.
Right. It's not the same as it was before. We're going to have some revenge factor going on here. We're going to see if these two guys can duke it out again.
Pete Maduri beat Bob Senker 2 weeks ago. They will be our first match here today. That's going to have the crowd fired up, won't it, Janelle?
Yeah, I hope so. It'll be really exciting to see how these guys battle it out.
So it's a first for Beat the Champ. The same two guys that bowled 2 weeks ago are bowling today. So let's get rolling. So 2 weeks ago at Transit Lanes, Pete Maduri beat Bob Senker 237 to 223. And keep in mind, the odds of us having a rematch are kind of long, because what had to happen is, while we knew Pete was coming back for the first match here at Fredonia, the only way Bob would have come back to bowl him was to be the top qualifier, which is what he was. So it's kind of a little statistical oddity there in Beat the Champ lore.
Okay, it's not easy to be the high qualifier in this tournament, because there's a lot of great bowlers that bowl it, and to turn around and rematch the very next time you bowl is pretty interesting.
Right, and as you mentioned, a little chance for some revenge from Bob Senker, because that match 2 weeks ago in which Pete beat Bob went right down to the 10th frame. It was tight, it was close, and as we told you, 237, 223 was a pretty good match. So it's going to be interesting here. And you saw the first start, first frame for Pete Maduri at Beat the Champ TV, and of course hashtag Beat the Champ, and make sure you like us on the Facebook page for all the information about scores and events, and you can find the latest information on our next month's qualifying trip. Maybe we'll have another rematch when we go to Manor Lanes 2 next month. That would be fun. So it's an opening frame spare for Pete Maduri, and now we get our look at Bob Senker, 29 years old, from Cheektowaga, dispatcher for a logistics company. For Bob, this is his second show. His debut came in that match 2 weeks ago.
Well, he obviously enjoyed his TV experience, because he came right back out and did it again.
And remember, he was the second alternate at Transit, so he had to have a lot of things happen. Two guys drop out, obviously, in order to even make it into that match with Pete.
That's absolutely true.
Well, we are here at Lucky Lanes in Fredonia. It is the first of our month-long stay here, our second trip to Lucky Lanes. We were here 1 year ago, so that gives us a chance to welcome in our buddy and the owner here of Lucky Lanes. It is Paul Nosek. Paul, welcome, and it's always good to be back down here hanging out in the Fredonia-Dunkirk area.
Thanks, great to have everyone back again.
And like we said, we've got a good match to get things going. So tell us a little bit about what's gone on here in the year since we've been down here at Lucky Lanes. And I guess you could start off by telling us a little bit about what our lane conditions are going to look like for our matches here today.
Well, I think we've had a lot of high scores this year. The league play's been very good. And I think seeing as we had 300 games in the qualifying match, I think we should have some good scores in the matches coming up.
What kind of oil pattern are we working here for our matches here this month?
It's a house pattern. Mm-hmm. It's a house pattern that I create with some of the guys from Kegel. I just tell them what you want to do, and they work with you on creating what works best for you.
Well, one thing about going from house to house is we see different surfaces. You know, some of these lanes have there's wood, there's synthetic, older synthetic. Tell us a little bit about the surface here.
We have obviously a wood surface here, which I mean, that's getting to be older. You don't see as many wood surfaces around as you used to, but it's a very good wood surface. I try and take as good care as I can of these, and which if you don't take care of the wood surface, or any surface for that matter, whatever oil pattern you put down isn't going to hold up. So I try and take real good care of the surface so the oil pattern that you do put down holds up well.
Are there challenges to the oil patterns that you set down on a wood surface versus that synthetic surface? Like, you have to use a heavier concentration of oil because of the wood?
Yeah, I think the synthetic surface is a little slicker than wood surface, so they have to be oiled differently, and it's always a challenge. And you got guys that everybody pulls on different things across Western New York when they come for qualifying, so they just have to get used to whatever you have here.
Obviously, the majority of surfaces around Western New York that these guys bowl on are more likely synthetic than there are wood. As you said, it takes a lot more effort, it takes a lot more care to keep them up. So what's the challenge for the bowlers when they move from maybe bowling 3 times a week on a synthetic surface to coming down here in a competition like this to have to shift to wood?
I think it's just reading the lane when they get out and throw a few shots and checking where their break point's going to be, and coming off the pattern, how the ball will react differently compared to a synthetic lane.
Right, and I think that most people have bowled on both and kind of do understand the differences in both, and it might be in a ball choice. You know, if you're going to know you're going to bowl on a wood surface versus synthetic surface, you'll know pretty much what equipment you should bring and what you shouldn't bring. So
Experience definitely helps.
And we see quite a few wood patterns as we go along here from house to house. We visit some of the older houses and do see some, some wood as we go.
This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ. Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
Hi, I'm with Bob Senker today for Beat the Champ. This is going to look like a rematch from last week, only with a different backdrop. Tell us how you're back again this week.
Yeah, well, I figured I'd try and qualify again for this, and I bowled real well. I ended up qualifying first, and I hopefully get my redemption this time.
I was going to say, is revenge on your mind today?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I'd like to get my revenge. I mean, I'd like to bowl a little better, especially hopefully no opens this time.
Okay. Well, it's a different atmosphere, and anything can happen, so good luck today.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm with Pete Maduri, our returning champion here at Beat the Champ. We're going to see a rematch from last week. What do you think of that?
It's kind of like a punching bag. I beat him once, and he's right back up. I think it'll be a great match, though. He bowled real well in qualifying. This is one of my favorite houses, so hoping to give him a good match.
Do you think it's to an advantage or disadvantage you didn't get a chance to bowl here and you didn't get a chance to qualify here yourself?
This is older wood. I like that surface, so with my speed, I should be able to adjust pretty fast. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to see you guys match up again.
All right, thank you.
So now we've got to see Pete come out here and throw
Make a good shot here.
2-3 strikes in a row when he really hasn't found the strike line.
Bowling on the 8th frame, and boy, it's an even worse split than it was before. So now it's the 4-10 split challenge for Pete Maduri to avoid back-to-back open frames.
And that's
here.
really, again, a matter of bad pin collision.
Yeah, because that could have shook out just as well as not. Just a little light on him, that's all.
How about that? How about that for saving
exciting.
yourself a little bit, huh? Look at that, an incredibly impressive 4-10 split pickup for Pete Maduri. That's one of the best shots we've seen on this show in a year and a half.
That's definitely a power took that one out.
You might have to patch a couple of dents in the side of
that's possible.
in the side of the 8th frame there, huh? In the 8th, in the 8th lane.
Yep.
If there wasn't a wall between 8 and 7, he might have taken all of them out on 7.
Discussing moments that might change things. That might have been it right there.
Absolutely.
He comes back and throws a double or triple here.
What a moment that is. We'll see what happens now as Pete moves to the 9th frame, but that was a huge shot.
It's light. He can't get that.
Yeah, and now what's the struggle right now, Sue? That's 3 in a row where he's not doing what he wants.
He's definitely fishing around as the ball's coming up late on him, and as he's making his adjustments, he moved and he made an adjustment on one of the shots and he went a little high. So now he's gone back to, I think he's trying to do some forward roll and trying to keep it up the oil line, and the ball's just not rolling up for him.
So it's another open frame, 2 of the last 3, and thanks to the amazing 4-10 pickup, it might have been 3 opens in a row. So here's Bob Senker's chance to put this one away in the 9th frame. And that's a huge strike and a huge answer. Well, we've had a little bit of everything here, including, like I said, our first rematch in Beat the Champ has not let us down with an incredible up and down, back and forth match.
I mean, this is truly one of the perils of bowling. I mean, you see a guy who knows how to make a great shot and has a game plan, and everything just goes wrong. It just goes different than he sees it going. A couple bad breaks, and turns the match right around.
So Bob Senker with back-to-back strikes here to take advantage of the 7, 8, 9 frame stumble of Pete Maduri. Looks like he may be on his way to getting some of the revenge from the match 2 weeks ago. 3 in a row. I don't know what you did to the lanes, Paul, but you got us off to a good start here, at least an exciting start. I'm not sure Pete would agree with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Pete might have a different opinion on that, but he just couldn't get the ball in the pocket. And as powerful as he is throwing the ball, it just shocked me. But like she said, it wasn't that far off from striking either.
Final throw here for Bob Senker. And what a way to end it. 4 consecutive strikes.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out with the righty versus lefty thing, because you know, I see he's adjusted and he's playing the left lane a little bit different than the right lane Bob was, and his direction was more, you know, left to right, and you know, we may have a little tighter situation. We'll have to see how this plays out as the matches go on.
It's a 229 on the board for Bob Senker. And there's a nice answer from Pete Maduri. Finally found the groove there. So there's the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard showing you the 229 total for Bob and showing you where Pete is at with at least a couple of more here in the 10th frame.
Same thing.
Yeah.
A little too touchy for him out there.
Just keeping it, it's off to the right too much. He's not bringing it in from right to left. So it's going to be a win for Bob Senker. Pete Maduri's final throw here.
What a great shot.
And another nice spare pickup and a nice smile on the face of Pete Maduri. It didn't go the way he wanted it to, but he sure gave us a couple of memorable moments. So it's a 229 to 175 win for Bob Senker. He does get his revenge in our first Beat the Champ rematch. So when we come back, we'll talk with Pete about what happened in that crucial stretch of the 7th, 8th, and 9. And stick around, because our next match is going to be Bob Senker and Ben Montague, and we're going to get some pretty cool down-under stories here from Paul Nosek. So that's all coming your way when we return to Lucky Lanes in Fredonia. You're watching Beat the Champ. Have a special match with our first ever Beat the Champ rematch, but you added some layers to that, Pete. That was as interesting and as exciting as a match as we've ever had. Take me through those 7, 8, and 9 frames, the open and 7 and 9, and that amazing split pickup in the 8th.
Well, the main thing is I lost by 54, so that's not good. But yeah, I made a couple splits to kind of try to save myself, but just got a little crossed up, some bad shots, and you know, he's definitely, I think he's got a good look. He might, could see him going the whole way today.
It's a classic sports acronym that it's hard to beat somebody twice in a row, right?
It is, yeah. He had me a little nervous. Yeah, he's throwing it good, so.
All right, well, appreciate the good show that you put on. Paul's got something for you as well, too.
Here, congratulations. I know it didn't turn out quite the way you wanted to, but congratulations anyway, and a cash prize from Lucky Lanes.
Thank you.
Appreciate
it.
Pete Maduri, it's a 229 to 175 win for Bob Senker, so he's moving on to our next match. We'll have that when we return. You're watching Beat the Champ.
Hi, I'm with Ben Montague, one of our local bowlers from Fredonia. Here in your home house, how do you think you're going to fare today?
I think I should be all right. I might have a slight advantage of I know how the lanes work, but then again, you know, there's all these great bowlers around. So,
was the condition that you qualified on very similar to what you bowl on in league?
Similar, a little bit more difficult, but fairly similar.
All right, so how did you do in qualifying? Did you bowl early? Did you bowl late? Did you come in? How was your scoring for the day?
I actually only bowled one shift, the first shift of the first Saturday, and 7:20. Ended up being 16th overall, and then came back and bowled 7:30 and managed number 2.
Wow, that looks like you might have the hometown advantage. Well, good luck today out there.
Thank you.
So it's match number 2 here on week 1 at Lucky Lanes in Fredonia. There's our returning winner, Bob Senker. His opponent, you got a quick glimpse at Ben Montague from right here in the Fredonia Dunkirk area, and this is his home bowling center, so that will be an interesting challenge here as Bob looks to make it 2 in a row. And the big hard-throwing lefty starts off with 9 pins as the 7 hangs up.
Well, let's see the battle of the left-hander and right-hander today. If Bob can take on another right-hander and send him packing. But if anybody knows how to drill a bowling ball for this condition, it should be Ben.
Yeah, Ben helps us out in the pro shop here. Works for Todd Langworthy in there.
So it's an opening frame spare for Bob Senker, and now we get our first look at 36-year-old Ben Montague, native of, resident of Forestville, not that far away here, works in the retail business, and as Paul mentioned, also helps out here and works at the pro shop here at Lucky Lanes, in addition to bowling here in the regular league on Monday nights. And this time it's his 10-pin that will hang up a bit. All right, so I teased it in before our last commercial break, but we'll use a little part of the middle frames of this match here for you to tell us a little bit about your adventure to Australia. Not only what was it like to go to Australia on a trip, but you made it a working trip a little bit too. So we want to get the latest lowdown on the down under bowling world.
Well, I met a family about 7 years ago at convention, and I've kept in touch with them. They live in a place called Werribee, Australia. It's outside of Melbourne, and just like I said, I've been kept in touch with them. They've asked me to come down several times, and I finally took the plunge and went down last summer. And it was it was quite an adventure. I mean, like you say, just going there was amazing. It was a long trip to get there, but they had just built a brand new center about 2 years ago down there. To see what they had done with that was pretty amazing. Of course, they spent like $3.5 million on the place. It was just a beautiful center, though. It's one of the top centers, and they host a lot of big tournaments down there and outside of Melbourne.
How much has the success of probably the most successful bowler in the world right now, which is Jason Belmonte from Australia, how much has he triggered I don't know whether it's a resurgence or just a surgence of bowling interest in that country, in that way?
As I told you earlier, the family that I know are good friends with the Belmontes, Jason's parents, and they know them very well. And you can see it, just the influence of his style, the two-handed style. I saw several kids when I was there that obviously it was wintertime down there, so they're in their middle of their bowling season at that time, and a lot of the kids are trying the two-handed thing, and you know that's a difficult thing to master without question, but he's definitely put a resurgence into it because of his success here in the States, and you know, being top bowler for several years.
Well, you saw a couple strikes in a row from Bob Senker in frames 2 and 3, and there's Ben in his third frame, leaving that 1 pin to hang up. So, did anything jump out at you about sort of the bowling feel or attitude in a country like Australia versus what we know here in Western New York?
You know, it's funny. You go halfway around the world like that, and there's so many similarities. I always notice not only in the bowling, in the sport of bowling, but in the business as well, because they have some of the same issues that I deal with here. And I'm just laughing and giggling seeing a couple of their league bowlers getting annoyed with one another because one was interrupting another one, and they were having a large argument. And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I'm like, "Are you sorry? I see that all. You know, everybody that's been in the bowling center has seen that at one time or another." And there it goes.
such a different contrast, not to interrupt you, Paul, but such a different contrast in styles between Bob and Ben. And as you could clearly hear, he's got his parents, his girlfriend, he's got friends and family here. So the Montague cheering section is making some noise
You
here.
can tell he's got the home field advantage here with the spectators. But it's interesting to see him line up because, you know, he has moved a little bit right of where Pete was playing, and he's got a little bit of a slower ball speed, which gives the ball some time to roll up.
Right.
And that's what you're seeing here with him. But I still have to say that, you know, Bob has a little bit of a lucky charm because that was a terrible break leaving that 8-pin on lane 8.
Right.
And there's that was a difficult spare to pick up there for Bob here on lane number 8, and he is unable to do it. So that's an open in the 4th frame for Bob Senker, a difficult lead. So, you know, the one thing, back to your Australia story there, the one thing that piques my interest is, you know, most of the bowling centers in Western New York date back to, what, 50s, 60s, maybe the 70s. What was it like to walk into a brand new $3.5 million bowling center?
Amazing. It's just, you know, it's like building a new home after you've lived in one, you know, you're like, well, I'd like to do this different. And they owned a center prior to that, but they just bought a piece of property up, you know, about 3 miles away and built it the way they wanted to.
So they built that from the ground up?
Yes.
What's different about, what would be the first thing that a Western New York bowler would notice about walking into a brand new bowling center?
They have a parking garage underneath it.
Okay, well that's different.
Which is different. You know, they park 50 cars and they have an elevator coming right up into the center, which is unusual. I've never seen that before. But that was interesting.
Is that because there's a limit on the land availability? Or?
Yeah, it's kind of, land's a little tight in certain areas on there.
All right, so you saw back-to-back open frames by Bob Senker in the 4th and the 5th. So here's Ben with a chance to capitalize on that misstep. He isn't able to do it here in the 5th, as he'll have to try to pull off the spare. But so, boy, the first thing that jumps out to me through our first match, Sue, and through halfway in this one, we've seen almost everything. We're all over the place a little bit, meaning these guys are all over the place.
Yeah, striking. We haven't seen a lot of striking yet. Sometimes the lanes have to settle down a little bit when they're freshly oiled.
We're going to be back with more Beat the Champ bowling action in just a minute. Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
They're throwing it well, but you're not getting that roll up in the back of the lane. It's because the oil's kind of long on him. So his ball speed actually gives the ball time to work. So I haven't seen him bowl before, but that might be by design. He might be slowing his speed down by design.
Well, and another difficult leave, and much like with Pete Maduri in that 3-frame segment of the last match, Bob's trying to figure out what's going on here right now.
Well, if you watch, Bob's feet have gotten very, very fast. That one right there, Bob was quick and a little wild with the shot, missed his target because I don't know if it's anticipation, a little bit of nerves, seeing that his opponent's really lined up. His feet got real quick on that one.
Good spare pickup of the 1-3-6 for Bob Senker. Well, I hope that you didn't use your whole trip to Australia to do nothing but bowling research. No. So tell us a little bit about some of the other highlights of trip to a wonderful country that I know is on my bucket list of places to get to.
Yeah, I visited obviously Melbourne because they live just right outside of that, and it's a beautiful city. And then we took a trip to Canberra, which is the capital of Australia. And then went up to Sydney for a couple days, got to see the Opera House and the bridge and all the stuff around there. And actually I visited centers in several different places because I had met people over the years that, you know, if you're ever in Australia, and I'm like, well, here I am. So went and saw their centers, and then went to the Great Ocean Road along the south and saw the 12 Apostles, which is if you ever look that up on YouTube or and Google the 12 Apostles, it's a formation right off the ocean, which is beautiful. You go out and see it, and it's amazing to see. It's got all these land formations right off the coast in the ocean. It's beautiful to see.
I think we need to do a Beat the Champ on the road. Maybe you can hook us up at your brand new Buddy's Bowling Center there in Melbourne. I think a Beat the Champ on the road would be a fun idea, huh?
Yeah, we expanded past the Western New York area and really get on the road.
Get on the road.
Now it's funny, like, you know, and I don't know, maybe, you know, we like to think of ourselves here as sort of the epitome of knowing what bowling is. And I mean, when you go to a place like Australia and you tell somebody you're from Buffalo, is there a connection? Like, do they know that we're a pretty good town for this sport?
No, they're not as familiar. You know, it's kind of like us. When we go, you talk about Australia, you don't realize how far the cities are apart and how much they're like that. She was coming to Orlando, and she says, "Can you drive down?" I said, "It's a little far." Okay, I got you. It's not quite that close.
I got you. This is like people who think we're a suburb of New York City, right?
Yeah, exactly. You say you're from New York, they immediately think the city. But in the center there, they have a lot of similarities. I mean, their junior program does well. They struggle with getting league players in, like we all do around here. It's tough to always keep league bowlers. They have Special Olympics and other youth programs that they run that are very similar to what we do here. So there's a lot of similarities as well.
All right, so now as we get back to the match here, you saw Ben struggling to get that corner pin down, and so he'll look for a spare here in the 8th frame. It's been a much cleaner match here for Ben than it has been for Bob, and that ultimately may be what decides.
Right. Well, while the lanes are transitioning and while you're having a little trouble striking, that's the most important thing that we talk about all the time is still making your spares. So at the end of the day, the person that's clean is probably going to be the one to win this match because nobody's really striking.
No.
Right. Now, Bob has had back-to-back spares in 6 and 7 following up those opens in 4 and 5. And
that was a better shot right there.
You could tell as soon as he threw it.
Right out of his hand, you could tell. Absolutely.
Yeah, because his timing was a lot better. And we talk a little bit about speed and timing, how, you know, he's using his slower ball speed to get the ball to roll up. And timing has everything to do with this game. You've got to get to the line consistently at the same time, which begins in your push away. But when your feet get away from you, the ball tends to go to the right or left, which is what we saw earlier.
That was his first strike since the 3rd frame, and again, a little frustration from Bob in that he couldn't get him back to back here in frame number 9. So we've only had 5 strikes in the entire match between Ben and Bob.
Oh yeah, they're working out there today.
Oh yeah, nothing's coming easy so far, is it? Which is kind of funny because, as you said, Paul, there were a couple of 300 games in qualifying here, so obviously things are a little different than they were a couple weeks ago.
Oh, absolutely they are. But it's a whole different scenario, bowling under the lights and everybody watching you.
Big strike for Ben Montague in the 9th frame.
So he's got a 16-pin advantage, and he can go off the sheet for 215, which would obviously shut Bob out. So he's looking to get this first one right here.
So as unusual as it is, because we've got such high-level bowlers, ultimately open frames may be the stories of our first 2 matches here, and that generally is the case in any match, but we just don't see a lot of them. And a little disappointment there on the face of Ben as he thought he might have had that strike there in the beginning of the 10th frame. And it does.
So he needs to make this spare to shut out Bob. So this is a big 10-pin for him. I mean, it doesn't guarantee that Bob will win, but he certainly needs this to shut him out. Great spare. I always think I would not have to make a 10-pin. I would not want to make a 10-pin to win the title, because even though it's the pin you shoot the most, it's the one that when you miss it messes you up the most. Because once you miss one for the day,
that thing's staring you down, right? When you need it to win, right?
And it's like a free throw, you know. I mean, it's the one thing that you do it's the one spare you shoot all the time as a right-hander.
So a good effort by Ben Montague, the home bowler here at Lucky Lanes in Fredonia, and he's able to use some of that hometown knowledge to post up a 194. So now lots of pressure on Bob Senker. And that won't get it done. So it's going to be Ben Montague who's going to advance to our next match to close out week 1 here. Sean Dietz is next up as the opponent, but the Fredonia guy, or at least the Forestville guy at this point, is going to be able to claim himself a victory here on Beat the Champ.
Well, it's not very rare that, or it's not very often that you're going to shoot a 194 and end up winning. So this was definitely a testimony to making your spares while you're trying to figure out the lanes. We'll see if the scores get higher.
Which is obviously an important thing. I stress that when I tell anybody that's trying to improve. I said, work on your spares. If you don't make your spares, you're never going to win anything.
Well, you know I love my statistics, but that's one that I don't have to see whether 194 might be one of the lower scores that we've ever had in a win. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. A win is a win, and it's a 194 to 178 victory for Ben Montague over Bob Senker. So Ben moves on. We'll get a chance to talk to Bob and break this match down when myself, Sue, and Paul return. You're watching Beat the Champ at Lucky Lanes in Fredonia. Well, a 178 is never going to usually be enough to win, Bob, but when you look and see that Ben Montague put a 194 on that might go, boy, geez, I needed a couple more shots.
Yeah, that stung a little bit. I was having trouble carrying out the 7-pin, and then with my split, I missed outside. I knew I couldn't miss outside. And then with the 7-pin, I just gave it a tug, a little brain fart, and it cost me.
Well, you took advantage of a couple of open frames and missteps by Pete in the first match, and then you kind of gave it back in those 2 opens in a 4 and 5.
A little ironic, isn't it?
It is.
But hopefully I'll be back again, and hopefully I won't do this again.
All right. Well, it's been fun to get to see you bowl over the last couple of weeks, and at least Paul's got something for you here to make the drive back a little better.
Thank you. Lanes. Congratulations on your early win, and thanks for bowling.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. So Bob Senker will, after the win over Pete Maduri, will give way to Ben Montague. So we'll have our next match. It's Ben and Sean Dietz when we return to Lucky Lanes in Fredonia. You're watching Beat the Champ.
Hi, I'm with Sean Dietz, one of our contenders today for Beat the Champ. I think I know you a little bit from Bowling League with you on Mondays. Tell us a little bit about that big score that got you here.
Well, I had 411 for 2 games Sunday night of qualifying. I was kind of sleepwalking the first game and a half, and I woke up, made a ball change through the last 17, 300 the third game.
Wow, so we've got a big score. Maybe we'll see our first 300 out here tonight. Well, good luck at bowling to you today, Sean.
Thank you.
So it's match number 3 here in our first week of this year's stop at Lucky Lanes in Fredonia. And again, Ben Montague advances. You got a quick glance at Sean Dietz, who will make his 3rd Beat the Champ show appearance in just a moment. But it is Ben that will start things off. And as we said, got to be a little bit lucky in this sport. And 194 to 178 win means you're a little lucky. But he did that because he had a good handle on the lanes. And it looks like he may be ready for that again.
Okay, I noticed that he actually threw that ball a little bit harder. We were talking about the softer speed that he used earlier, but ball started to roll up on him. So that one, he was a little firmer. So I think he was using how hard he was throwing the ball. He's using the ball speed to control his angle to the pocket.
So here's Sean Dietz. First time we've seen Sean since he was on Beat the Champ at Tonawanda Lanes back in June of 2016. Mentioned this is his 3rd show appearance. 1 win and 1 loss for the 22-year-old from Lockport, and a good start for Sean Dietz with a strike in the first frame, and Sean put up a nice little 300 game in qualifying. So he's feeling pretty good and maybe starting to feel like he's getting a little handle on what's going on here at Lucky Lanes.
You know, we've got the left-handed, right-handed dynamic again. We saw a left-hander kind of have a little bit better ball reaction in the beginning of the show, and then Ben came out and made it look just the opposite. So now we're going to see how this plays out.
Right, and then there's Sean, who seemed to take something off that throw a little bit, and as it results in sort of a challenging split for him as well, too. And boy, we've seen a lot of crazy splits already in our first
it's hard to
show here.
It's hard to really know for sure from back here, but talk to somebody who actually physically bowled on these lanes. We're here with Pete Maduri, our returning champion. Had a little rough start to today. Did you see a difference in 7 and 8? Did they play different?
No, lane to lane, I thought they were pretty similar. Sometimes on these house shots, you get a little bit too much over-under, where you actually get the ball right too quick and it overhooks. You miss in and it never hooks, and that's kind of what I was facing. Tried to get a little right, but you always had that fear of getting it right too quick and then it jumps. So you're almost kind of trying to avoid splits. I was doing kind of overcompensating, I guess, and trying to keep it in, and just ball never read the lane. So something that you probably learn on all these house shots. You go to different houses, and you know how much over under there is, and here there's obviously more than I had anticipated.
Is this pair, is the television pair different than the practice pair that you got to warm up on?
They were actually quite a bit tighter. Yeah, I was surprised. I thought that I had a good look right when I first started bowling, and they actually carried down real fast. I think that's why, I hate to say it, but the lefties are at a little bit of an advantage. I'm a diehard lefty fan, but I do think it's good for them, because they might not get the carry down quite as quick as the righties do, with more righties being on the pairs.
Good strike in the third frame there for Ben Montague. Well, Pete, your match, as we talked about, a couple of crazy open frames, weird spares was the key to your match, and then Bob comes back and has the same thing happen to him in his match against Ben. So when you see guys a little bit all over the place, like we've seen through our first matches, as a bowler, what does that tell you, and what does that lead you to have to try to make adjustments when the strikes are not falling like they normally would?
Obviously, as Sue always says, the spares are always very important, whether you're bowling on a house shot or a real demanding condition. But I think the lanes change really fast here. I haven't bowled here in quite a few years, and just something that if you're here every week, you kind of take that into account before you even get out there, and I didn't do it quick enough.
Well, you had that early disadvantage too of a couple pocket, really bad pin collision where pocket hits leave wide open splits. You made one of them, but still, it kind of gives the other person a little bit of, loosens their swing a little bit when they get a couple, when they see their opponent struggling.
Sure.
But, that certainly didn't help you. It was hitting the pocket.
Right.
But it does appear to me from back here that the ball's going awfully long.
Right, and I was going to say the other thing is I do spin it a little more. Is excessive access till you have a lot of the guys nowadays are a little more up the back of it, which is probably the right thing to do. I'm still kind of an old schooler where I tilt it a little more, so it actually magnifies that problem for me.
Right. We're a lot of more forward roll kind of, because it's one thing that I always learned is when you have that big strip of oil on the right side, that the more forward your ball rolls, the more it'll roll up in that. And I've actually seen Ben kind of use his slower ball speed to kind of get the ball to roll up in that.
I was going to say that's the other thing, yeah. My ball speed's a little fast. His ball has a little more time to read the lane, so that's a big advantage as well.
Well, all right, so right now, after 2 strikes in a row and 3 of the first 4 for Ben, his opponent for the second consecutive match has had 2 open frames in the first half of the match. So strategy-wise for somebody like Ben, hey, strikes are great and he's getting them, but do you see that, Pete, and do you go, all right, spare my way through this and I might get another 194 victory?
Well, I think it's kind of what Sue said. I mean, it does loosen your swing, but at the same time, you got to capitalize because things can change real fast. There's no question.
The action will continue on Beat the Champ in just a minute. Welcome back to Beat the Champ.
I'm Janelle Sabin, and we're here at Lucky Lanes with the Mayor of Fredonia. Now, what does it mean to you, Fredonia, in this community?
Well, Fredonia is a very beautiful village, first of all, and combines so many things. And the things has a beautiful history. It's a very historical village. At the same time, we have beautiful architecture, mainly from late 1800s and early 1900s. We have festivals, we have history tours, we have a university, and also at the other end, of course, we have the lake. So, and let's not forget the wineries. We have a lot of wineries. So if you come here, come to Fredonia, go and visit them. They have wonderful wine, and they're going to be very happy that you're there.
That's wonderful. Thank you. And Now I understand that you and your family have come bowling here before. What does this mean to you and your family?
Well, my kids actually bowl a lot here. They love to come. It's a wonderful establishment because it's much more than bowling. You know, it's a social gathering. You come here, you find your friends, and of course you play. Social gathering mostly for me because I'm not very good at bowling. I'm just following along.
It's fun. That's all it's about. Is the fun, right?
Yes, exactly. It's nice. It's fun. My kids have a good time, and I just love it.
Awesome. That's wonderful. Well, thank you very much for welcoming Beat the Champ and WBBZ into the village of Fredonia. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
4 strikes in a row for Ben Montague right now, and he has found his groove a bit here. And even though Sean came back with that strike in the 6th frame, Ben is starting to really put some heat on and maybe even get close to running away with this one. 5 in a row now. So, Pete, we've talked a lot about, because we've seen you pretty regularly over the last couple of shows, and, you know, we've talked a lot about that you just kind of move back to the area, and here you kind of get dropped into the high-level world of bowlers, and I'm sure now a few of your fellow competitors would go, I wish you would move back to Texas, but what's it been like kind of moving back here and relocating and then sort of relocating yourself back into the bowling world?
So I left this area. I'm born and raised in Buffalo, left in 2012 to go to Texas. I was there for 3.5 years. And then in Indy for a year, and it was an eye-opener just how good the bowling scene really is here compared to other parts of the country. It's amazing. Every single weekend there's a good tournament going on, you know, between here and Rochester. So it was quite an eye-opener. Really missed the area.
I kind of want to allude to that, the tournaments going on. How does a bowler who wants to, you know, maybe get involved in bowling in weekend tournaments, how do they find out where they are and, you know, how to get involved in it?
There's a couple real resourceful websites. MyBowler.com usually has all the tournaments listed, but there's a lot of good sweeper tournaments, scratch tournaments going on every weekend for anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 to win, and usually on a more demanding lane condition, so kind of test your skills, which I think we should sign Ben up.
6 in a row now. 6. I was going to say, you might not want to sign Ben up. You might stay there taking some money out of your pocket.
Well, this is, aside from that, this right here is truly one of those cases where knowing when to make a move and how to make a move and really having been bowling on these lanes really has proven to be an advantage.
I agree. I definitely agree. I think you need to know the move you need to make before it even happens. You have to have something in the back of your mind, and I kind of thought I had that, but I obviously didn't. But just kind of preparing before the actual transition takes place and having a game plan.
Right. There's a lot of talk about house shots and how, you know, house shots have made the lanes easy, and, you know, yes, they've driven up the league averages, but this is a really good example of, though, even though this is a house shot, still how it breaks down and how the oil moves down the lane and the characteristics of the lane, still an advantage to kind of...
Absolutely, and you still get that variance even in house shots. I mean, people say house shots, but they can really get you crossed up pretty quick. I mean, there's a lot of area bowlers that can average 230 on one house shot, and then on the next house shot they're only averaging 2.0. So there's a lot of variance out there between surface and, you know, just the way every house oils the lanes.
Exactly.
It's been a tough match here for Sean Dietz, and he's had some really nice, powerful throws and strikes, but he's also now 3 open frames and kind of powered his way through that spare. But tough to when you're trying to find yourself, and the other guy's got 7 strikes in a row. That makes it quite the challenge. So it's going to wind up being a rather difficult day here for Sean Dietz.
It's going to be a quiet day bowling for us tomorrow.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to have to deal with Sean on your Monday league, aren't you?
Well, I'm going to let you take care of that in the post-game interview.
Yeah, 157 on the board for Sean Dietz. Certainly not what he needs, what he wants, what he's used to. But when you've got Ben Montague throwing 8 consecutive strikes, he's going to do a little better than 194 to win this time, isn't he?
So what's the next thing to bowl coming up?
There's a 330 squad today in Rochester that we're thinking about hitting, but yeah.
That's you better
But he was kind enough
you better
to sit
watch
here
out
and
for
talk
New
to
York
us.
State Troopers if you're going to try to make that drive.
We got some time, I think. But yeah, there's
Where is that at?
Dom Bowling Center. Actually, John Martirola is the manager there. He actually had one of the few guys in the country to have a 900 series, perfect series. Lives right in Rochester. A lot of people don't know that, but type that in on YouTube. John Martirola, 900 series. Very impressive.
Wow.
Very impressive.
It's super impressive.
Yeah.
So we got one more here for Ben Montague on the 9 consecutive strikes run. Let's see if he can wrap it up with a 10th in a row. Not quite, but that's okay. It's still going to be a very impressive victory for Ben Montague, a 279 to 157 win. What a performance. Hey, Pete, thanks for bowling really well in the first. Thanks for joining us here with your insight, and good luck. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see you at Manor 2 in a couple of weeks.
I hope so.
We?
Yep, I appreciate it. Yep, thank you.
Pete Maduri giving us some real good insight on how the lanes are reacting here, but probably the guy who's got the best handle on those is Ben Montague. We're going to talk to Ben. We're going to talk to Sean when we wrap up our first week stay here in Fredonia. We're at Lucky Lanes, and you're watching Beat the Champ.
Congratulations. I know it didn't go quite as well as you wanted to, but at least you get a little cash prize from Lucky Lanes.
Thanks. All right, Sean Dietz coming up short here against our defending champion and returning winner, Ben Montague. Sue?
Well, we talked a little bit about home field advantage here, and do you think you had that going on?
I think it did.
Well, you made a difficult scoring condition look very, very easy. So is being the pro shop operator helpful?
It comes in handy.
All right, well, awesome bowling today, and we're going to see you come back next week and take on a new batch of guys.
All right, so it's an impressive 279 victory here on the board for Ben. Sue and I will come back and wrap up our first week stay here in Fredonia and preview what it figures to be a super exciting second week show. We'll do that when Beat the Champ returns right after this. Well, Sue, one word comes to mind after watching our first 3 matches here at Lucky Lanes in Fredonia, and that is challenging.
Oh, wow. That was the lowest scores we've seen in a long time. But then you see the hometown guy who's familiar with the lanes make them look easy. So, you know, maybe there's some advantage to that.
Yeah, well, and speaking of Ben Montague, at least from hearing it, Janelle, that was as loud a hometown crowd as we've had for a bowler in a long time. What was it like to be in the middle of it?
It was pretty awesome. He had so much support here with him today. It was just incredible, and I can only hope to see more of that ongoing.
Well, we will, because Ben's coming back next week, but we've got a murderer's row of outstanding bowlers for him to make his way through. Tyler Molina, Tony Dolan, Matt Zazowski, 3 of the best that have ever been on Beat the Champ. That is next week. So we will see you next week from right here at Lucky Lanes in Fredonia. Thanks for watching Beat the Champ.